Yeah.
Hello. Good, thank you. Nice to meet you. Danai, how are you doing?
I'm gonna think. Let me turn off my doorbell. Sorry, I just ran.
Look at that timing. Let me turn off my doorbell.
Sorry about that.
Not at all.
good.
Welcome. Myself and Ronan.
Yeah, we have to nudge it over. Hello.
You won't be able to see him, but he is here.
I am here. I'm lurking in the
I
back.
believe you.
You know, he'll be chiming in from the back. But we can see you, and it'll look different when it all comes out. But thank you for joining us. It's like amazing to have you here. You are our second guest on the first ever episode of the European Tech Show Live, and we're very excited to have you here. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
We just gave an introduction to yourself and Gradient Labs, how successful Gradient Labs has been. We talked about what you're building, the AI agent software, customer service specifically for fintech or finance more broadly. We talked about some of your incredibly high profile customers and clients across the UK fintech ecosystem. We talked about Yonder, Penfold, Zego, and a huge insurtech. So look, I'd love to hear, how's your journey been from leaving Monzo to building this, an incredibly technical product in the AI space?
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks so much for the kind intro as well. So a little bit of background on us, in case, it will be interesting. So all three co-founders are ex-Monzo. So we spent a really long time at Monzo when it didn't have over 12 million customers. It was, a niche fintech in the UK. And we joined early on and we're shipping ML systems there. And funnily enough, one of the first things that we worked on was shipping. My cat likes to do a quick intro to himself. One of the first things that we worked on when I joined Monzo was shipping or improving help search. So you'd go into the help tab and you'd type a query and you get relevant help articles. And that was back in 2018, I think, when transformer architectures were like the hot stuff that everyone was using. LLMs were not a thing at that point. And that's what we started working on. And then obviously we were at Monzo for a really long time, shipped a lot of systems in financial crime as well, and a lot of products that use ML systems in financial crime. But one thing that was a common denominator, no matter what we built inside Monzo, was that human decision-making and reasoning across the company and across experiences that people have had, support agents that have had throughout their tenure is quite critical at being a really successful support agent. And then GPT 3.5 came and we realized that actually there's a start of a very important wave. It's going to be a very critical inflection point on how people work, how people live. And that's when we decided that, we can take all of our experiences at Monzo and use them to build safe and reliable AI operators in a very heavily regulated and heavy stakes industry like financial support.
And how long were you building it before you went live with the product?
Oh, that's a good question. So that also kind of will give you a bit of insight on us as a team. So we are very obsessive with quality. So we're very happy inside the company to just say, good enough isn't. Like you can't just, when you're dealing with finances of people. So when somebody's getting in touch with their bank and they're saying, I have this problem with my finances, it's not just kind of like a best effort support that you can offer. It's just not good enough. So actually, what we did is we built a version of the product within a few months of leaving Monzo. And then we tried to use it ourselves. So we scraped, for example, Monzo's help articles. And then I was using it to I had to figure out my ATM limits or whatever. I was like, this is really annoying me. I just cannot deal with this. And I hated chatbots and I still hate chatbots, the old school stuff. So we built a version of the product and we're like, well, yeah, okay, this is not it. So we scrapped it and we started again. So we were building for, all versions, we were building for about, I want to say, a year, and kind of iterating and then testing it on ourselves and fixing what we dislike. So yeah, it was an iterative process. It wasn't kind of just ship the best effort thing, but that's because we're obsessed with, not good enough stuff.
Yeah, amazing. And I read that you hit $1 million of ARR within months of launching, which is just phenomenal. But how does that impact the sort of like the technical architecture that you've built, does that have implications for you when you're looking at scaling? Is there a risk of things like cracking and breaking, or does it not really matter in your space?
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. So cracking and breaking and scaling, I think, is something that people that are building with LLMs are, or vibe coding with LLMs, as you know, is the common term. They're hitting now. Once you build something and it looks good enough in the beginning, and you ship it, like, oh, wait a second, there's all these edge cases that I have not thought about and are now failing. So in our case, because we were obsessed with this kind of good enough mentality from the beginning, we very heavily focused on having a really good evaluation system. So the way we think of our agent is kind of the same way you would think of a human brain. As a human, you have a bunch of individual skills that you know how to do. So you know how to pick up the glass of water, and that is a skill that you have, right? Like you can, you know, the weight of the glass, and you can drink water from it. So it's not just kind of like one agent where you just throw stuff in and then stuff comes out. Our agent has a lot of individual unique skills that are all evaluated, both individually, but also in combination with each other. So you do kind of like an end-to-end integration test. So very early enough, we focused on tooling for evaluations, building really clean human-based labeled data sets that we can reuse. And then we have that even going forward. So every conversation that our agent participates in, we actually run our own evaluations off the back of the conversation, whether it gets handed off or it gets resolved. And then we find flaws in its decision-making or thinking under the hood to then iterate on. So yeah, that's been a very key driver on our product. But the other thing that you mentioned, one thing, sorry to interrupt. One thing that you mentioned is like, how hitting 1 million ARR is impressive. I'm using your words, but I felt quite uncomfortable saying that. But I think the reason why it happened from like going live with a product and giving it to customers and then growing in terms of revenue is because like it resonates with people. Like our bar isn't just beat the workflows and the chatbots out there that just irritate the heck out of you. That's not the bar. That's not what we should be aiming for here. When you have such strong technology, what you should be aiming for is something that performs as good as your humans. And that's what our customers see, and that's what resonates with them.
Sorry, on that, I'm just looking at your website at the moment, and it's clear you're kind of putting your money where your mouth is, because the tagline at the top of the website, if you know what I'm going to say, says AI customer service that works will outperform your provider or pay you 10K.
Yeah.
And I saw a LinkedIn post from the CEO of Zego, one of your customers, who talked about implementing your agent and how I think like customer support satisfaction went from 60% to almost 80%. And the best performing member of their customer service team was your AI agent, which is just insane, right? The AI agent is now performing at a level that is better than all the humans in the team. And for him to come out and publicly be like, this has been transformative for our business, is like real validation of the product that you're building, which is really cool.
And there's a reason for that, right? So like I mentioned our obsession with evaluations, but there's also kind of the secret sauce here is we focus on learning from humans. Humans are really good at support. They've been doing it for a really long time. So it's not about reinventing the wheel from scratch. Our agent watches how humans solve problems. It builds kind of a knowledge graph of how this company works. It learns how they tackle complicated situations where customers are upset and may want to raise a complaint. It learns their tone of voice. So the reason this agent performs well is because it learns from the best humans, and it learns how to handle tricky situations based on how humans have done it. So essentially, if you have multiple individual people or AI agents solving a problem, you have an error rate for every single person. Now you have this one AI agent that is actually aggregating across n humans and eliminating this like random noise or random error that you'd get from individual people. And that's why it performs well. It just learns from humans. So humans are critical here, by the way. I'm not one of those like, let's just eliminate all humans and ship AI agents kind of person.
Yeah. I'm curious to hear what you think about Klarna, right? Because Klarna took an approach of saying our customer support is going to be like 100% AI agent. We don't need people. And then the Klarna CEO took a step back and was like, actually, we do need some people. And they ended up bringing, I think, I can't remember what it was, but I think they removed something like 700 or 800 roles. And then they turned around and said, we're going to need at least 100 or 150 human roles. Is that how you're envisaging your product to work, like alongside humans?
Yeah, definitely. I think humans are critical in providing you with a feedback loop of, there's situations where agent just doesn't know how to handle, and it will hand it off to humans, and then it will learn from how the humans do it. So you'll always need this feedback loop to fill in gaps that the agent will have. But also, interestingly enough, I think right now support automation is in no way a solved problem. So obviously, LLMs and support feel like a perfect combination, and it seems obvious that you use LLMs for customer support. But like Klarna, you will not find many companies that will say, yeah, we hired an AI agent to our support and we've now let go X% of our employees. And that's because right now, most AI agents will resolve like 50, 60, 70% of the easiest conversations. So actually, the human time doesn't shift that much in the distribution. You still need humans to do the hardest stuff. And that's what we're focusing on and I'm not surprised that Klarna did that, because there is not many companies that, have proved that they can solve the long tail of really complicated stuff where humans spend a long time on.
Yeah, the time-consuming complex customer queries.
Exactly.
Just to go on to that as well, that's interesting. Like, and how the future of this, I know that this sort of like human supervision element is super common in basically any like agentic tools that we're seeing on the market at the moment. We saw what happened recently with Builder AI, that I guess the whole thing was just all humans. Where, like right now, you said it's like 60 to 70% of cases are getting solved by AI or moving on to a human. What do you think the future looks like? Will we get to a point where it is just 100% agentic, or?
That's a really good question. I think we see kind of an inflection point at about 85% resolution, where, after 85% from our experience, the distribution then becomes like a really long tail of niche individual stuff, or like one-off cases, or kind of really custom, unique scenarios where, the agent may not have enough knowledge or experience on how to solve those problems. And especially in financial institutions, at that long tail where it's unique and different, we just want to do a best effort attempt at using previous kind of similar experiences to solve that problem. Like, if it's unique enough, you're dealing with people finances, you need to use a human to help you there. So I do think there's an inflection point at like 85 to 90%. And then the last kind of 10%, you have a human that can teach you and you learn from. And interestingly, I think there's also so obviously we're talking about frontline support mainly here, but there's also kind of the back office operations. And by that, I mean stuff like financial crime investigations, financial difficulties investigations, complaints, vulnerability. There's all these problems that are inherently very human intuition and human experience based, and potentially require a lot of kind of human emotion as part of decision making. And that's also kind of a sector where I find it very hard to believe that we would eliminate humans, because inherently, if you're investigating a case of vulnerability, somebody's lost their home, cannot pay their mortgage or loan back, an AI agent will not directly have the experience or know how that feels to handle that case appropriately. So it needs a human to learn from on how to handle those things.
Yeah, that makes sense.
One of the things we want to talk about was talent in Europe. Jensen Schwang was talking about the density of AI talent in the UK specifically right now. How have you found it building out your technical team, which I guess is it solely in London? Do you have people working across remote places? It would just be amazing to get your insights on building a very high performing technical team in an AI product.
Yeah, for sure. So all of our team are UK based. Most of them are London based in particular. And I think because we are still in early stage startups, we're about 20, 25 people. Most of the folks are from our network. That's kind of, I think in the beginning, hiring from your network is really key. And that's kind of what we've leaned on. Interestingly, I really agree. I think the UK and Europe in general has really high density talent. If you just list the universities that exist that produce top research, the list is very long. Interestingly, though, I think it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, or kind of a chicken and egg problem, where in startups, it's not just about being really technical. It's also about being able to have really good first principles thinking and kind of worrying about the techniques and the product at the same level. And I think if you just come out of academia, for example, you may have this obsession with research, but not necessarily the product thinking. So you need to have a bit of both. And interestingly, I think if you are in the US, there are so many startups and scale-ups that you can join, and you build both of those muscles and the first principle thinking in that situation very easily. And I think that's what creates this very large pool of candidates for startups and scale-ups, is because, there are a lot of people just kind of exercising that muscle of first principles thinking in that environment. I think in Europe, naturally, is kind of this cycle of you don't have as many people or as many startups, and you kind of go in this like vicious circle where less talent because less startups, but then less startups because of less talent, if that makes sense.
So when you look to the future, as you scale up, you hire more people, are you looking for that blend of, let's say, academia in machine learning, maybe a machine learning degree or computer science, combined with some experience in like an early stage startup or a scale up? Is that what you're going to be looking for?
Yeah, I think that is quite key for us. I'm not the type of person that kind of like creates filters in that way. I think Europeans are very European. I got this feedback from VC where we're very factual and we're very nonchalant about our achievements. We're like, yeah, I've done X, Y, Z. And that's why I found when you're hiring in the UK and Europe, like just buying a coffee for someone and just getting them to talk about how they solved problems is a much stronger signal than just kind of saying, oh yeah, they've worked for 2 years at a startup and they went to Oxford, for example. So obviously you need some kind of criteria to filter out a good portion of candidates. But then after that, working at a scale-up or startup and then buying those people a coffee and see how they solve problems, I think that is the most important key there.
Yeah, amazing. Makes sense.
I was going to ask, just going back to the research element of things, obviously you'll have like part of the AI, the ML team will be working on products, part of the team will be working on research, as you said. When VCs come to look, let's say you go on to raise another round after this, like how much attention do they give to the research side? Like, because obviously they want to look at like the ARR multiple, but I'm guessing that the research team isn't as focused on, how do we build a product here and like, increase the top line. They're much more research focused. Like, do they hold, can you wow them with the research team as well as wowing them with the ARR metrics?
I think our obsession with research is in combination with the product. Because we're again at a very early stage, we are not at the stage where you can just have a team of people go off and do kind of moonshot research projects. Everything that we try will have to tie back to the product, and it will have to tie back into features that will benefit our customers and the quality of the AI agent. We have this mentality of you just need to drive at the wall very fast if you're doing research and see that the path may fail, and then you need to move on. So I think VCs don't look necessarily at like, okay, who is in your research team and where do they study and what do they do? They're more interested in how are you using that talent for features and products? How is this going to increase your market penetration? And how is this going to give you a key differentiator as a product? They're more interested in that from experience rather than kind of, what research do you folks do, if that makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
1 minute left. Final question. What's your top priority for the rest of the year?
Oh, top priority. We kind of touched on it already, right? The support is a non-solved problem. You still have this to actually make a meaningful business impact on our customers. We need to solve the longer tail of problems. So we're focusing a lot on that of how do you solve this very complex organizational problem where even companies themselves don't know how to solve. The solution right now is just hire more humans and throw them at the problem. And obviously, that is what we're trying to solve. But then the other focus is learning this inherent decision-making or gut feel, intuition decision-making that humans have in the back office operations like financial crime. If you ask a human to tell you how they investigate money laundering, they can't. They don't know how. It's just experience. So we're building agents that learn to infer or distill this knowledge into something that an AI agent can follow.
Amazing. And I think Gradient Labs is one of the most exciting AI startups in London at the moment. It's tapping into the ecosystem. It's tapping into the AI agent movement. It's like a perfect time in a perfect place to be building what you're building. And you've seen that in the traction. So we're going to be watching closely. And if you ever want to come back on to announce news or anything like that, just let us know, because we're super excited about what you're building. So Renee, thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, let's stay in touch.
Yeah, got to have you back.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
See you
Bye-bye.
later.